Okay, well, welcome everyone. And before I dive in, I wanted to really talk about UCSF Health Hub, and how we're creating a community for everyone, like companies like Echo, to accelerate their work. So what do we do at UCSF Health Hub? For those that don't know UCSF, we are the world's leading medical research institution, really bar none. More innovation comes out of UCSF or the UCSF area than any other hospital in the world. At UCSF Health Hub, we see ourselves as being at the worldwide center of healthcare innovation, and not only spawning and helping the ideas that come out of UCSF get to market, but helping all the companies in our community, and we're sitting in the middle of Silicon Valley, bring their products to market more quickly and more successfully. We do a few things at Health Hub. We have one system, we call it Health Hub Connect. It's like a Match.com. And every day we're connecting dozens of companies with the clinicians, advisors, and experts they need to sort of help them scale and grow their company. We've got thousands of companies and thousands of advisors in the network, and it's one of our products. We also have our award show, which obviously Echo won last year. Well, this year's award show is the grand finale is on October 7th. We are going to be live at the Mission Bay Conference Center, which actually is on our campus in Mission Bay, San Francisco. We've gotten over 1,000 companies to submit this year for our health awards. We've got great sponsors. It's going to be a great show, and we're going to announce the quarterfinalists shortly. Today, we're in conversation with Echo. It's a Bay Area-based cardiopulmonology screening company that's revolutionizing how providers screen for cardiovascular disease in the front lines of care. Echo won our 2020 UCSF Digital Health Award for the best hospital diagnostic for its work equipping over 125,000 clinicians across thousands of hospitals with their stethoscope technology that assists providers in identifying heart disease earlier and with greater accuracy. And it was no mean feat winning this award. There was a lot of competition, probably over 70 other companies. So winning this award is a big deal. Today, we're going to dive deeper into how Echo leverages machine learning algorithms to assist providers in early disease detection, and how the company plans to scale its solution over the next few years. Joining us on the panel today is Jason Billette, and Jason is Echo's co-founder, and he's Chief Customer Officer. We've got Dr. Adam Saltman. He's a Chief Medical Officer at Echo. We've got John Maidens, Staff Data Scientist. We've got John Chorba, who's the Assistant Professor of Cardiology at UCSF, which is near and dear to our heart, and cardiologist at San Francisco General Hospital. Dr. Chorba has partnered with Echo as a clinical research partner for the last 4 years, and he's helped to develop the gold standard data sets that were used to train Echo screening algorithms.
Thanks so much, Mark. It's great to be here and to be joined by Dr. Chorba, Dr. Saltman, and Dr. Maidens. There's a lot of doctors, so it's an exciting panel. Wanted to just quickly introduce you to Echo and our mission. We started Echo back in 2013 to help clinicians on the front lines of care more accurately screen for and then ultimately monitor cardiovascular disease using the tool that's already around the neck of 30 million clinicians around the world, which is the stethoscope. It grew from conversations that my co-founders and I had about 8 years ago now with cardiologists around the pain points that they experience as they receive patients very often after they've been either misdiagnosed or delayed in terms of their diagnosis. And one of a few cardiologists, including Dr. Chorba, who's on the panel today, looked at their stethoscopes and really talked about the power of the tool as a low-cost, non-invasive screening tool that could be used in every single physical exam, but also how difficult it was to use for many frontline providers. There's tremendous subjectivity in terms of being able to suss out the nuances between normal and abnormal heart sounds. And it's really reliant on the fallible human ear. And so the idea for Echo was, let's build on this iconic tool in medicine that's omnipresent, it's low cost, it's easy to use, but let's take some of the subjectivity out of it. And let's build a digital stethoscope that can help clinicians better understand what they're listening to in real time, detect heart disease earlier on and with greater accuracy, and get patients into the pipeline for cardiovascular care earlier to hopefully improve their outcomes. So without further ado, I'd love to just play a little quick video here that walks you through our Echo mission and a little bit of our story.
Cardiovascular disease is actually the leading cause of death in the world. There are millions of people in the US and around the world who have early stages of heart disease, and they may never know before it's too late. The opportunity that we saw was that since the stethoscope is that first exam that's done on almost every single patient, if we can improve the confidence and the capability of those frontline clinicians, we could have a massive impact on how and when we detect cardiovascular disease.
It's essentially using the ability of a computer to assist a physician to get to the most expert level they possibly can.
The most important weapon against heart disease is data and knowledge. When we have information about how our heart is functioning, that is the weapon that lets us fight this disease more effectively.
So, it's amazing, despite all of the advancements that we've seen in cardiology over the last couple of decades with the handheld ultrasound and availability of the ECG, the stethoscope is still so relied upon as the frontline screening tool. And so when we decided to build the Echo platform, we really wanted to combine three components to preserve the ease of use, the low-cost nature of the stethoscope, but also modernize it. So the Echo platform consists of three specific components. We have the first FDA-cleared digital stethoscopes that not only just amplify heart and lung sounds, but they actually pair via Bluetooth to our compatible software. We then built the first software platform around digital stethoscopes that allow healthcare providers to engage with digital heart and lung sounds in a way they've never been able to do before, such as visualize the phonocardiogram as well as the ECG that we can capture within the stethoscope itself. We allow them to record, save, and ultimately share heart and lung sounds for virtual telemedicine consults, which over the last 18 months has been an extraordinary use case as the need to do virtual telecardiology and telepulmonology has absolutely exploded. And then the final component of the platform is our AI, is the decision support. And we've developed algorithms around the screening of structural heart disease, really looking at murmurs, atrial fibrillation, and then have algorithms in the pipeline for even more in-depth murmur characterization around structural heart disease, as well as low ejection fraction screening to assist in the earlier detection of heart failure. So I want to turn it over to Dr. Saltman to walk through the specific types of algorithms that Echo has developed and how it incorporates into our broader platform.
Thanks, Jason. Just to build on what you were saying, I mean, what we're really trying to do is identify patients who have some of the most common causes of death and disability. And obviously heart disease is number one on that list. And when I think about problems of the heart, I think of them in three broad categories. The first are abnormalities of the structure of the heart. And here we're talking about mostly valvular disease. Then I think about abnormalities in the heart's ability to pump. And we're talking about heart failure, inadequate output of the heart. And finally, I think about the electrical function of the heart becoming deranged. For example, atrial fibrillation, the most common heart rhythm abnormality. And so we took that thinking and moved toward these three specific algorithms to start. And as Jason said a minute ago, those are really just the beginning of our journey into developing these algorithms that can leverage the power of capturing sound and ECG from a digital stethoscope. So starting on the left, we trained an algorithm to detect atrial fibrillation from the single lead ECG that you saw during the video on one of the physician's devices that comes from our Duo device. And we were able to show that compared to physicians reading a standard 12-lead electrocardiogram, that our AFib algorithm was 100% sensitive at picking up the disease and 96% specific. And these are the data that we use to obtain FDA clearance. We then turned our attention to valvular heart disease. And this is very much a stepwise approach. First, we just wanted to show that we could detect whether there was a heart murmur or not. We're building algorithms that will go into more depth. For example, whether a heart murmur is dangerous or whether it's innocent, whether it occurs during systole or diastole in the cardiac cycle. But those are algorithms that are coming. The algorithm we have today can tell you with almost 88% sensitivity and almost 88% specificity whether there is a murmur present in the sound that the physician is listening to. And so we also use that, training it against the expert ears of cardiologists. So we can basically put a cardiologist ear in anybody's pocket and get that kind of performance out of the device. And Jason alluded to an algorithm that we hope to submit to the FDA soon, looking at the pump function of the heart. We know that more than 5 million people in the United States suffer from heart failure, and one form of heart failure is due to a decreased pumping function or ejection fraction of the heart. And we are able to detect a low ejection fraction from the signals we record with the Duo stethoscope. And we know that in the wild, in a 12-lead version of this algorithm, there's about 100% sensitivity and about 80% specificity at picking out patients with a low ejection fraction. And we are now adopting that algorithm for our single-lead Duo device. So the whole idea here is to place a package of algorithms into the clinician's hands that run on these stethoscopes and enable them to pick up patients early, perhaps even before they have any symptoms, and bring them into cardiac care, which should prolong their life, increase their quality of life, and eventually reduce costs of care, readmissions.
From a big picture point of view, one of the things I was really excited about when we first sort of talked about this sort of technology is that, as Jason mentioned, the stethoscope is just iconic. Everybody uses it, from cardiologists to all types of doctors, even medical assistants. Anyone in the medical field will have a stethoscope around their neck and really can use it to get the sounds. But the really hard part about the stethoscope is the fact that it takes a long time to really master its use. And just as an example, as a cardiologist, I've gone through many years of training in order to be able to determine what I think are important cardiac conditions. But as I think was mentioned in the video, cardiac disease is still the leading cause of death in this country, even in the COVID pandemic. Honestly, that's still the case. So it's an incredibly common problem that we see. And because it's so common, people don't come with their symptoms to a cardiologist necessarily. They may come to really anybody. So a screening process has to be accessible to really any doctor, not just one who's had 10 years of postgraduate training in that particular field. And so really trying to be able to turn if you think about the stethoscope as a diagnostic test, it's a test where getting the information is actually relatively easy. Everyone already has the ability to have a stethoscope and just put it on someone's chest, but it's the interpretation of that test that's really hard. But it's a perfect setup for a machine learning or an AI type algorithm where you can try to train and offload the burden of that interpretation from the clinician, so that really anybody in the field could have some confidence that there might be some cardiac problem, and then shift the focus of whatever the diagnostic studies are towards what's more appropriate, either towards a more in-depth and more expensive cardiovascular analysis, or towards something different if that doesn't seem to be the case. And so I was really excited about that potential opportunity. And I think what the Echo platform and the three parts of it really are key. It's not just a machine learning algorithm. It's the ability to have a device that then really seamlessly links to a cloud that can then analyze that information and then give it back to you in real time. And all of those pieces are non-trivial, but really have to come together in order for this to be able to work. And I think now using the device and having it out there, it does seem like, why didn't somebody think of this before? But it does require all those three things to sort of come together, and that's really been pretty impressive.
What we've built here is a deep convolutional neural network model for classifying, for detecting heart murmurs. So based at sort of a high level, how this works is it's an algorithm that's trained on a very large database of heart sounds that have been collected out in the wild. And so in order to train this model, you need both the heart sounds that are input to the algorithm, along with high quality ground truth labels that tell you, is this particular heart sound a murmur or not a murmur? Or is it a heart sound that's basically too noisy to tell just because it was maybe collected in a very noisy environment and you just can't hear enough? So in order So in order to train this algorithm, we've basically showed it a very, a relatively large database, over 6,000 recordings that in total make up over 34 hours of annotated data that's been listened to by an expert in order to build the model and train the model. Yeah, so what this model will do is first assess, is this high enough quality recording in order to be able to determine, is there a heart murmur there or not? And if it is judged to be sufficient quality, the model will then classify it as a murmur or not a murmur. And so what we have done in collaboration with UCSF is set up a large validation study in order to test the performance of this algorithm. So we've collected almost 1,000 patients, over 900 patients at UCSF and at a couple of additional sites at Northwestern University and Los Alamitos Cardiology Clinic, and have essentially validated the performance of the algorithm on that data set. So we've annotated a subset of those, having them sent out to sort of 3 different cardiologists to assess, are we hearing a murmur or not, and have validated it that way. And also in this study, we were able to collect heart sounds at the sort of 4 standard auscultation positions, but paired with echocardiography data to really get at the ground truth in terms of what structural heart disease do these particular patients have that may be causing the murmur. So we've also been able to validate this murmur screening algorithm's performance for screening for particular forms of valvular heart disease. So, for aortic stenosis screening, how well does this murmur detection algorithm work for that, as well as for mitral regurgitation screening, how well is it working in that context as well?
Wow, sure beats the stethoscope. Dr. Saltman, Adam, I'm going to come back to you. And prior to Echo, you were a medical officer at the FDA, and you were responsible for reviewing, novel or early detection tools like the one Echo's built. Can you speak how Echo approaches the regulatory pathway for these tools, and are the paths really different depending on the AI? And just give all of us a little bit of a background here.
Oh, I think that's a really great question, Mark. Thanks. The whole field of artificial intelligence is something that's of keen interest to regulators because it changes so rapidly. And you can think of artificial intelligence in a couple of different ways. And certainly when I was at FDA, we were trying to put together the framework. The FDA has really been leading the charge around the world and trying to set up a framework for evaluating algorithms and how to get them on the market. But the idea really is to always be able to demonstrate to any regulatory authority that your product is safe and effective. And those are really the key words. And so the idea of the effectiveness of the device is in its ability to detect whatever it is you're trying to detect. So we set out, when John Maidens was talking about the algorithms and how we trained them and validated them, we had to test it against completely independent, brand new data sets out in the wild to show that it performed at the appropriate levels. And I gave you some of those numbers earlier, 100% sensitivity for atrial fibrillation, et cetera. And so the FDA wants to see those numbers, just like they would with really any test, AI or not, and say it's effective. Then when it comes to safety, they want to be assured that if there is a false result, a false positive or a false negative, that harm will not come from that. And so we make sure that we approach the FDA and we say that the product is used for screening, for detecting, and leading patients into the appropriate pathway. It's not the end of the road, it's just the beginning. And so when you can make that argument successfully, then regulators will accept the fact that you have proven it's safe and effective, and they'll allow you to market the product. So that's kind of the approach we've taken. but we're very interested in a whole other subset of artificial intelligence algorithms, which I will call adaptive algorithms, which means these are not fixed in time. They change by themselves as experience is gained in their use. And we have not built any adaptive algorithms yet, but obviously we're interested in constantly feeding back the experience that's gained in use to constant improvement of the product. And the traditional way of dealing with those products is whenever you change the product, you had to go back to the regulator and make another application and another application, and on it could go. That just, quite frankly, was not possible. That's just not possible or sustainable in the world of artificial intelligence. So these frameworks are just being set up now. There's a lot of public interaction. The FDA just set up a center of excellence for artificial intelligence devices, and trying to figure it out. How are we going to go forward with more complicated, more sophisticated algorithms? So we're looking forward into joining that and to developing those kinds of algorithms in the future.
Nice. Jason, I'm going to run back to you. Wanted to get your thoughts on partnering with health systems and the success that you guys have had on the commercial side, which is actually rather significant. You could build the best AI in the world, but if it isn't integrated into the clinical workflow of what's going on on the provider site, it's dead in the water. We know that. We've seen so many great technologies sort of come to market, but basically get stuck. You guys aren't stuck. So really, as the chief customer officer, can you speak to how Echo's partnered with health systems to deploy the technology at the front lines of care, and really how it's worked and why you've gotten it to work?
I think it's a great question, Mark, and hits the nail on the head. You could have, phenomenal high performance AI machine learning algorithms, but if they can't be leveraged in a matter of minutes at the patient's bedside, they're not going to be adopted. And as we built this solution, it was really important to us that the digital stethoscopes were designed to be able to pair via Bluetooth and in real time to compatible software on any operating system that the health system wishes to use it on. So whether it's a tablet or Android, iOS, whether it's the kiosk or the cart that's in the exam room, which is often Windows based, or whether it's completely browser based, we want to allow providers to be able to turn the stethoscope on, pair it with our software, and then literally within a matter of 15 seconds, capture a recording and get an interpretation from our algorithm. If there was a little bit of a visualization earlier, but it really is remarkable, as even this visual on the screen here shows, as the provider's listening, they see the visualization. When they click that record button, we provide an interpretation from our AI, interpreting both the sound and the ECG in about 3 seconds. So really closing the loop of being able to integrate into that really powerful 1 minute part of the physical exam that the provider is already dedicating to the stethoscope. And I think that's what really sets this solution apart from others. We've seen tremendous cardiac screening innovations happen in the last couple of decades, but only the stethoscope has a dedicated minute in every single physical exam for every single patient. So if you can maximize that minute and turn it, go beyond just the ability to hear sounds, but turn it into a really powerful cardiovascular assessment across a number of different conditions, we think this is kind of our best shot at helping at the front lines of detecting cardiac disease earlier. You asked about sort of how we work with health systems, so I'll comment on that briefly. We have about 125,000 clinicians in the United States spread out across 4,000 health systems that use the technology really in all the ways a stethoscope can be used. So some use it for really high quality amplification. Others use it for telemedicine. So we work with about 300 hospitals that have leveraged this solution to be able to capture digital heart and lung sounds and stream them in real time during a telemedicine consult, really allowing them to go beyond just a video visit. And we've seen video conferencing and video telehealth visits skyrocket. But for a patient with cardiovascular disease, just seeing them and talking to them isn't going to allow you to do enough of a comprehensive exam to prevent an in-person visit. And so by equipping, whether they be kind of rural clinics or satellite clinics, or even patients at home, with our devices and our software to allow for real-time telecardiology consults and telepulmonology consults, we're unlocking a totally new category of telemedicine. And then finally, which is really more what we're focused on today, which is the early detection of disease and using it at the bedside as part of the primary auscultation to identify early indicators of cardiovascular conditions. What is really powerful and where we are fully committed is to deliver this AI, to deliver this insight, whether the provider is face-to-face or whether they're doing a telemedicine consult. We've seen medicine change, do a 180 as we know it, where now telemedicine is 40 to 50% of visits. And so we feel the stethoscope, in order to make it into this next generation of care, it needs to be telemedicine friendly, and our AI needs to be delivered in real time during that virtual consult. We really, really believe in this, in the power of auscultation and the power of the stethoscope to be an early screening tool. And we feel like we're just scratching the surface on the types of conditions that using 15 seconds of heart sounds, 15 seconds of lung sounds, and 15 seconds of ECG during that valuable 1 minute physical exam, we'd be able to help analyze. So we have our hands full, and our product pipeline pretty full of algorithms that can help screen for a variety of cardiac and pulmonary conditions using that data input. So at this time, we're not as focused on other types of devices, but what's remarkable about the stethoscope is because it's such a horizontal tool, we're equally passionate about how it can be used at home with the patient. So between in-clinic and at-home use, in-person and telemedicine use, as well as all the different conditions that we can screen for with this sensor, that's really what we're focused on right now. And you can imagine that 5-10 years down the road, you put the stethoscope on the patient's chest, and there's a whole panel of conditions that it can help screen for without really disrupting the provider's normal physical exam workflow.
I want to say also from a UCSF perspective, you guys are really the poster child of digital health. I mean, a stethoscope is iconic. It's like when we think of a doctor, and you're really V2 of a doctor. When the whole visual of a doctor is a stethoscope. And when I explain digital health to people, I actually bring you guys up all the time and talk about, well, this is what digital health is doing. This is how it's changing the old analog model. And I think you guys have done a great job today in explaining this to, in the webinar. And so really on behalf of everyone at UCSF Health Hub and our upcoming UCSF Awards show, and by the way, if you haven't signed up for that, sign up for that to attend, which is October 7th. This has been a great webinar. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Team Echo. And, I'm really glad we did this.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.